Swapping Scales for Suave. Chapter 2. Spike muttered a rather colorful curse under his breath, as he peered out of the window that looked over the driver pulling their carriage. His pace was slow, dignified, and held a calm, even speed that likely took a lot of practice to get down properly. Normally, this fact wouldn't bother the dragon, but the small black box in his chest pocket was beginning to burn a hole through his clothes.
Oh, I'm so excited!
Rarity exclaimed, touching the strip of cloth covering her eyes.
Is this blindfold truly necessary, though, darling?
Spike nodded, then remembered that she couldn't even see him.
Yeah. I thought it would be more romantic that way.
Well, it certainly is quite romantic, though I am remiss to lose out on a sunset carriage ride with you.
Rarity replied sweetly.
Yes, well, if all goes well tonight, then I do foresee such another ride in our immediate future.
Spike stated, blushing slightly.
If tonight goes well?
Rarity pressed.
Whatever do you mean, darling?
Spike gulped, and tugged at the collar of her shirt.
Well, you know, in case you don't fall and hurt yourself or something.
Rarity giggled, pressing a hoof gently against her lips.
Oh dear, you can be such a worrywart sometimes. I swear, it's like dating a scalier Twilight.
Well, you know what they say about parents. They give you the good and the bad.
Spike exclaimed, and Rarity nodded.
Quite true, darling. Quite true.
Spike turned his head and peered back out the window.
Oh, thank goodness,
he muttered. Seeing his destination slowly coming closer, Spike nervously scanned the road for anything out of the ordinary. However, everything seemed fine, as the streets were relatively empty given that it was nearing twilight by then. The various restaurants Spike could see were at about half capacity, for similar reasons, but this was also likely due to the fact that it was a Wednesday evening. Not many folk went out at such a day or hour, but that was precisely why Spike and Rarity were there at that moment. As the carriage began to slow, Spike nervously rubbed his hands on his pants, wiping away the sweat that threatened to make them clammy. When their ride stopped, he quickly stood and reached down to take hold of Rarity's less dominant hoof.
May I guide you to our final destination?
He inquired, as suavely as his nervous heart would allow. Rarity giggled, and gently stood, allowing the dragon to do just that.
It would be my honor,
she replied. Spike smiled, and opened the carriage door, hastily stepping out before leading his date out behind him.
Your payment's in the cab, as well as a tip.
Spike quickly whispered to the driver. Said driver, who stood a little taller, and upon eyeing the small open bag of gold on the plush seat of his carriage, nodded slowly.
Best of luck to you, youngin',
he announced, before beginning to trot away.
Wait, how does he?
Spike shook his head and then turned back to Rarity.
My apologies, dear. We've arrived. But before I remove your blindfold, may I ask you a question?
But of course,
Rarity replied.
Do you remember what today marks the event of?
Spike inquired. The unicorn giggled excitedly.
Of course I do. It's our 2nd anniversary.
Spike barely stopped himself from giggling in excitement.
You are right, which is why we have returned to our restaurant,
Spike declared. Rarity gasped, as her date removed her blindfold.
Burger Queen! Oh, that was quite the bait and switch that you pulled.
I didn't want to make it too obvious where we were going,
Spike replied, only to blush and rub the back of his neck.
I thought it was fitting, considering how on our first date I totally screwed up the reservation at that other place.
Rarity giggled, and placed a brief kiss on the dragon's cheek.
You brought me to your favorite restaurant and shared something special with me. It was lovely.
Spike chuckled awkwardly, and tried to mutter out a response, only to fail. Rarity merely smiled.
I don't think you need to hold my hoof anymore, though I am certainly not complaining.
How about we cut the difference then?
Spike offered, before locking his arm with her foreleg. Though the position was slightly awkward, given Spike's newfound height, with a little slouching he made it work. Plus it was worth it, given the adorable blush which crossed his lover's face.
That is... acceptable?
Rarity remarked with a fake air of disinterest. Spike extended an arm towards the door.
Shall we?
Rarity nodded.
Approval.
Spike grinned, and strode forwards, making sure not to walk too fast lest he accidentally leave Rarity behind. Opening the large glass entrance, he strode through into the small, old, and mostly empty fast food place with all the grace of a dancer entering a ball. Rarity matched his movements perfectly, with the unicorn holding her head high all the while. All around them stood several tables, one of which was crowded with younger ponies, who didn't pay them any mind. To their left sat 3 booths, one of which had nestled near the entrance to the kitchen and had high walls on either side. In front of them stood the long counter, cash register, and behind the glowing board of menu items that were hard to read due to having nearly faded away completely. The slightly older unicorn sitting behind the till jumped up the second she laid eyes on the pair, a massive smile crossing her face.
Hey, small fry! Scorch mark! The lovebirds are back!
She yelled through the narrow opening separating the front of the store from the back. Spike and Rarity merely smiled as they continued to gracefully stride up to the counter before finally separating.
Good evening, Sunny Smiles.
Rarity greeted. The yellow-maned and orange-furred unicorn worker bowed, briefly lifting her paper hat as she did so.
And greetings to you, Lady Rarity and Sir Spike.
She welcomed.
So, how's the evening rush treating you?
Spike teased. The mare stood, wincing slightly when her knees cracked.
Not the busiest, but thankfully we got some hungry students, and you guys keep the two oafs from falling asleep on the job.
Hey! Shouted a green-furred earth pony stallion, who was poking his head through the opening.
That only happened once,
Added a brown-maned Pegasus stallion that peeked through a second later.
I have no doubt that it was a well-warranted rest.
Rarity offered.
Oh, don't go encouraging them.
Remarked the till worker.
Now, what would you like to order?
Now, hold on. Aren't we going to at least get a twirl?
Asked the earth pony worker.
Twirl, twirl, twirl!
Chanted the Pegasus.
Fine, if I must.
Rarity declared in mock indignation. The unicorn gently spun in place, her long flowing purple dress subtly shifting shades as the light caught at it at different angles. Upon completion, Rarity ran a hoof through her mane and with a slight flourish made it bounce into place. The Pegasus whistled, while his partner clapped his hoofs together.
Bravo, bravo!
They yelled.
Now, Spike!
Demanded the earth pony, only to blush and look down.
That is if he wants to.
The dragon chuckled.
It is good to know that you can recognize a good coat when you see one.
Come on, give him a twirl, darling.
Rarity encouraged. Spike straightened his lapel.
If you insist, dear.
He too proceeded to turn in place, and though he wasn't quite as showy as his partner, he still made sure to make his coattails flutter briefly. Once back in place, he straightened his stark white tie and ran a pair of clawed hands down his back suit jacket.
He doesn't have a brother by chance, does he?
Asked Sunny Smiles, who leaned over the counter.
Or maybe a single father, or uncle?
Rarity giggled.
I'm afraid they're all taken, dear.
The older mare cursed under her breath.
Just my luck.
She muttered. Rarity smirked and leaned closer.
Though, he does have a rather dashing cousin that visits every once in a while. Perhaps next time we're in Candlelight we can swing by. Oh, you're a saint, you know that.
Sunny Smiles replied with a grin. Rarity chuckled as she took a step back.
I wouldn't go that far.
Well, I would, offered Small Fry with a grin.
You two are the highlight of the week around here,
Added Scorchmark. Sunny Smiles thumped a hoof against the counter.
Alright, that's enough chin wagging. These two are on a date and are gonna need some grub.
Don't worry, I won't forget to go light on the mayo this time,
Announced Small Fry.
Or to go heavy on the hot sauce.
Added Scorchmark. Spike grinned.
I don't know how you guys aren't busier.
Well, not everyone has your refined palate.
Remarked Sunny, who shot the pair a wink.
Now then, what can I get ya?
Rarity cleared her throat.
The usual, but make my Sunday a medium. Oh, daring today.
Sunny exclaimed, turning to Spike.
Let me guess, a double flame broiled ruby burger with extra hot sauce?
You know me too well, Sonny.
Spike stated with a smile. The mare chuckled.
That'll be 24 bits, please.
Spike nodded and reached within his coat.
Allow me, dear.
Such a gentleman.
Rarity exclaimed. After paying the mare and depositing his shrinking bag of gold back into his pocket, Spike extended an arm.
Would you care to join me at her table?
He offered. Rarity batted her eyelashes at the dragon.
Why, yes, sir, Spike.
The dragon blushed, and gently took the unicorn's foreleg before trotting over to the booth closest to the kitchen's entrance. Then he carefully sat across from his partner, his bulk sinking into the familiar seat. After giving his butt one final wiggle, Spike smiled, and watched as Rarity tucked her dress out of the way.
You know, I was beginning to miss this,
He said.
It has been quite a while, hasn't it?
Rarity offered.
Yeah, too long.
Spike replied, only for his smile to become strangely wistful.
You know, I wonder what would have happened if I actually gotten the date right and we ended up at the other place.
I don't know.
Rarity murmured.
I think we might have found our way here eventually. The golden saucer is nice, but it can be a bit stuffy.
Yeah, not exactly the best first date experience, huh?
Spike inquired.
Most mares wouldn't agree with me, but I'd rather prefer a special place like this.
Rarity remarked.
Well, you are a very special mare.
Spike remarked with a smile.
Oh, spiky old charmer.
Rarity exclaimed, batting her eyelashes at the dragon.
You know just what to say.
Most of the time.
Spike retorted, with a self-depreciating chuckle.
In order to succeed, one must try.
Rarity replied before clearing her throat.
Now, do please tell me about this Dragon Summit thing that you've got coming up. You've hardly uttered a peep about it since you first set things in motion all those months ago.
When I first heard of Burger Queen, I thought to myself, wait, why didn't they do Burger Princess? And then I started to realize that doesn't roll off the tongue as easy. Anyways, let's get on to our very charming donators. Top donators Peter Coulthard, J-Tin Man, Darkside, Ponyman, and Gauntlet. TacoCat598, CourierCruz CI, Strix, Zar630, Narwhals, Rayden, Blackmoonheart, Dospo, Delta Omega, RuneScythe9852, Hunter Norman, Austin Rowland, Lightning Blitz, Dash of Evergreen, Rhynie Dragonwolf, Secret Moon, Tal Rasha, The Toilet Snake, Sword Brethren Mordred, Ronin Wandering, Enderai63, Random Person Man Guy, Easy, Jack Cadge, Skyochia, Leslie Prickett, Jordan Peterson, Crimson Kitten A9, Lightskin, Monster Kitty, Starlight Glimmer, Squiddy Boy, David E. Sanchez, Soul Dragon, Gaggy, Trey, Shadow Drake, Joe Piercy, Alex F., Rainbow Dash, Teal'ca Anderson, TV Killer, John Becker, Leon Reynolds, Raven Speedster, Zach Rakau, Mystery CU, Edgar Garcia, One Kingdom 1, Nissa Rusan, Vazuri, Dyslexic Character Sheets, Just a Random Boy, Hodrick Plincart, A Crazy Person, Ponyman365, and Daniel Beck. Thank you all very much for watching this video, and live life to the fullest.